Clerk, call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Pastor Brent Beasley from Broadway Baptist Church. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let's pray together. Eternal God, fount of all wisdom, we ask you to bless the representatives we've elected and those who work with them. Grant that through their discussions and their decisions we may solve our problems effectively and achieve together a more just and united society, enhance the well-being of this place where we live. We pray for the people of Tarrant County, those working and without work, the homeless and the well-housed, the fulfilled and the frustrated, the confused and cluttered with material goods, and those scraping together a life from others' leavings, lonely or living in community. We pray for our sisters and brothers, mourning, celebrating, living. May we share faithfully in their suffering and in their hope. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Pastor Beasley, for coming out today. We appreciate it very much. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have one announcement for you as it relates to the agenda. That is under the briefing section, item 11A, which is conducting local elections. We're going to take that up after closed. We're going to close first, and then we'll come back and discuss that particular item. Also, I'd like to remind the Court that as it relates to redistricting, we have a public hearing tomorrow night here in the Commissioner's Courtroom beginning at 7 o'clock to receive public comment on the illustrative map that the Court has previously approved.
The subject of this hearing is only commissioners redistricting.
That's correct.
Precinct and constable districts will be considered at a later time.
That's correct.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of August the 9th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks? Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations and resolutions, Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have one.
Judge and fellow commissioners and everyone, I have a distinct honor this morning to introduce to you a living legend, a champion who is living right here in our backyard. And I'm very proud to introduce to you Ms. Shelby Vaughn. And Judge, can you please read the details into record?
You bet. Whereas Shelby Vaughn, a Mansfield Legacy High School junior, is the 2011 state discus champion in the 5A track and field meet, winning with a state record throw of 161 feet. And whereas she is also the state 5A runner-up in the shot put with a throw of 44 feet 11 inches. And whereas Shelby led the nation in discus competition almost the entire season and had a season best throw of 174 feet 10 inches and was featured in many publications including ESPN High School Runner, and whereas she continued her success nationally this summer as one of the youngest throwers at the USA Outdoor Track and Field Championships in Eugene, Oregon, where she was first in the women's discus with a throw that went 165 feet 5 inches, qualifying her for the 2011 Pan American Junior Athletics Championship in Florida. And whereas Shelby competed at the international level, taking second in the discus and third in the shot put at the World Youth Qualifiers in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. and placed third in discus competition at the 7th IAAF World Youth Championship in Lille, France, with a throw of 172 feet 6 inches, and ended her summer success winning the 2011 Pan American Junior Athletic Championship in Miramar, Florida, for the USA with a throw of 174 feet 3 inches. Wow. And whereas in her senior year she will continue to play volleyball and track and field with Legacy High School, and she has made a verbal commitment to Texas A&M University for the volleyball and track and field. And whereas Shelby has high hopes of meeting the standards for the Olympic trials, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby commend Shelby Vaughn for her extraordinary athletic accomplishments in track and field at the state, national, and international levels this year. In witness whereof, we've set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed the 16th day of August, 2011.
I want to thank
You're moving its approval.
I'll second. And I want to make one comment. She can throw a discus farther than GK can hit.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Wynn, and make any comments you'd like.
I'd like to invite Coach Lacey Beckler and Shelby's mother, Mrs. Vaughn, to come forward as well. And thank you for working so hard in building a champion for us. And I'm very proud of you. I invite you out here because often we don't hear enough successes from our young people. And you're the future of this county. I hope you know that, and the state and this country. And your success, your achievement means character, discipline, hard work, and leadership. And I personally am very proud of you, and I'm sure everyone in this room is very proud of you. And thank you for making us look good on the world stage. Thank you for that. If you want to make some comment and then come forward so we can take some pictures, is that okay?
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Wynn for this opportunity to be recognized, and I've had a great time representing the USA.
Sounds like you've got to go to some pretty good travel spots.
Please, all three of you, please come forward.
Her coach says that she would have loved to have gone along and even in the suitcase to Paris.
All of us take a picture.
Come on up. Come on up, Shelby. Oh, y'all come on, go on up.
Make sure you hang this on the...
Just say we got the picture.
Come on in here. A lot of cameras out there. So just right there. Trying to take two at the same time.
Good.
I didn't even throw it half as far as
Jenny, how many cameras you got down there?
I'm doing it for more than one person.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
He can't hit a golf ball that far. Better not see you.
Sandra, you might want to make your travel arrangements. It looks like there's another Olympics in your future. Several years ago when Nikki Cubes, Constable Joe Cubes' daughter, participated in the Olympics in, was it Greece, Sandra? Yeah. In Greece.
The last one.
The last one. She competed in judo.
I did not know that.
Sandra went and supported her on behalf of the Tarrant County family, and we might expect her to do the same in this instance.
We're real proud of Shelby, and Commissioner, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Your Honor, we need a vote. We have a motion and a second.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of court, we have two items for you this morning. The first one, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court concur and approve, let's go back to item number one. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an exception to the county travel policy as it relates to the Domestic Relations Office.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of Court, on item number two, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court concur and approve action of the Tarrant County Hospital District Board of Managers and approve Second Amendment to a commercial lease agreement between the district and Town North Associates for a facility in Arlington, Texas.
We'll move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips, I'm assuming you're next and that the district attorney doesn't want to get in there in front of you right now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is requested that Commissioners Court approve changes in the operation of county public paid parking facilities to include three things. First, a change in the public paid parking rates. Second, an acceptance of credit and debit cards for public paid parking. And third, approval of a pay station at the Plaza lot.
None of this takes away the assigned parking
That's
that
correct.
people have today.
This is just public paid parking.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
It is requested that Commissioners Court approve Amendment Number 1 to the contract with Standard Parking Company for parking management services.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And lastly, it's requested that Commissioners Court approve changes. Got the wrong one. It's requested that Commissioners Court approve an agreement with the Tarrant County Credit Union for the credit union to lease parking spaces in the Plaza lot, also to receive limited parking validations for the Plaza lot, and lastly, for the county to accept reimbursement from the credit union for utility costs in credit union occupied spaces in county buildings.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Glenn?
I move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Ms. Glenn.
Mr. Beecham?
I saw the cow and the horse was picked up. Guy didn't lose his trailer.
They're still happy.
Lost a partner though, didn't he?
I still can't believe we got 3 front page mentions on a one-eyed horse and a cow, but we did.
It's a great story.
What a great country.
That's a great way to get rid of a one-eyed horse. Is
Yes,
a
sir.
parrot.
Your Honor, we have, other members of the court, we have 2 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is in regards to RFP number 2011-068. This is an RFP for inmate calling services. I'm going to give you some history on this. This is a project we've been working on for approximately a year. The court approved the specifications originally. The evaluation committee consisted of members from the administrator's office, district attorney's office, information technology, the sheriff department, purchasing. We received 5 proposals and 2 no bids. 2 firms, Securus Technologies and Synergy Telecom Service, were the 2 highest rated RFPs as scored by the committee. We then asked those 2 firms back for oral presentations, product demonstrations, and to answer questions. Those 2 firms were then rescored by the committee after the product demonstrations, And Securus Technologies received the highest evaluation score on both options. If you'll turn back to the last page of our court communique, as directed by the court, option 1 was for $1 million commission guaranteed, with call rates as submitted by Securus of $2.95. Option 2 was for $1.1 million guaranteed commission, with call rates of 3.4. The current call rates are like $3.80 for a 15-minute call. The average is about $5.13 for that 15-minute call. We'd like to begin contract negotiations with Securus. We need direction from the court as to accepting option 1, $1 million guaranteed commission, or option 2, $1.1 million.
Mr. Beecham, I'm disturbed by the fact that none of these firms came to the table with any hub participation. How is that possible in this day and time?
The county's hub policy is suggested at 20%. We can certainly bring that into discussions with final evaluation or final discussions with this firm.
I would be inclined to reject all bids as non-responsive. That issue is that important to me.
What hub company provides this service? Number one, and is there one?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm from the telecom industry, Commissioner. I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in. This type of telecom service is very specialized because not only the company has to deliver the service and the installation of the hardware, the software, they also have to handle the billing and so forth, right?
Correct.
So it's very specialized. I'm not saying there is no hub companies out there. I don't know that for a fact, but I can tell you it's very, very specialized type of service.
To even imply that there are no hub companies flies in the face of reality. Mr. Beecham, you yourself are aware that we have had a hub company involved in our inmate telephone business for at least 20 years.
Did they bid?
No.
They were not the prime. They were part of the prime's bid. And for these companies to come to the table without anyone representing the universe of hub companies is insulting to me.
Every time we have a pre-bid conference, this was mandatory as allowed by Commissioner's Court. Our hub coordinator, Belina Willis, makes a presentation. And we go over the county's hub policy, our suggested 20% participation. That occurs at every pre-bid conference that we conduct.
Is it a part of the bid evaluation?
We don't give a percentage for
Then it has no
participation.
teeth.
No, we don't.
No, we're saying that we had 5 bids, and none of the 5 had any hub deal. So
We can possibly make the prime uses some sub who are hub certified. Can we do that?
We can certainly go back in those negotiations, have those conversations.
It really is at the discretion of the Commissioner's Court. If we think it is important for us to work with hub companies and minority-owned companies who basically do not have the internal capacity to handle the entire contract. And if we want to help them grow and expand and so forth, then we should make it some sort of a stipulation to allow maybe X percentage, 10, 20% of the entire contract to be awarded as a sub to a hub company. And through a period of time, the goal here is to help build the internal capacity of these smaller companies and help them grow. It will be good for the economy. It will be good for Tarrant County. It will be a win-win for everybody. And I know of several government entities who have been doing that very well. But I'm not familiar with the legal specification for doing that, so I'm just kind of throw it out there for you to consider.
Again, who is our current carrier?
Securus.
And Securus has used minority, or has used hub contractors in the past,
Yes, sir.
but they did not bid this one with a hub contractor.
That's correct.
Was there any indication from them as to why that was the case?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Companies will do what we ask them to do. They will do what is measured in the evaluation. If it's not a part of the evaluation, then there's no consequence for not doing it, or conversely, no incentive to do it. For us to put it in the specs and give it no weight is just, it's just sound and fury signifying nothing.
Is it an official policy of Tarrant County to?
It is.
It is? I don't know that, so.
Our policy is for a good faith effort of 20%. We have no set-asides, which is a mandate.
I see.
To me, on a bid this size, for 5 firms to come to the table with nothing, it does not indicate a good faith effort. But I will not continue to flagellate this dead horse. But I won't be voting for it either.
Jackie, you, from my, just looking at this, I mean, it looks like not just this bid, but every bid, it appears that you put this out in the right areas to give everybody, whether it's a hub contractor or not, the opportunity to be able to participate in these bids. I don't, and I think what the Commissioner's talking about is the possibility of some larger company working with a smaller company that's a hub contractor to.
That's exactly what
Kind of what we did with the new building, right? The civil building.
Exactly.
That's not part of your specification? I'm assuming that you're not forcing them to do that. This company that is low bid or given the most? High bid, actually. They, in the past, have used a hub as a sub?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you know who that sub was?
Ascension Communications.
Does anybody know why they weren't approached, or why they didn't approach the apparent high bidder? Or was there no, anybody know?
Anybody want to come forward and talk about it?
Morning, Judge, Commissioners. My name is Eric Wursel, the Communications Manager for IT. To my knowledge, Securus had some they had some concerns that the work wasn't being performed with the partnership that they had with Ascension Communications.
Just to echo what, my name's Amy Barnes, Telecommunications Manager. With the relationship that Securus has had with Ascension during the life of their contract, the specialization that Ascension specialized for them is part of the billing process. What they would do is Ascension would actually touch the base of users that are actually receiving the phone calls from the inmate. What they would do is they would actually set up with these families different opportunities for them to actually look at their finances and regroup and actually reach out to other areas of county help or special services. So these families will actually not become in debt for making these receiving these telephone calls. During the contract, Securus repeatedly asked for actual data on the statistics on how many people they're helping, how much money have they been saving for the families, so on and so forth. That's been a repeated conversation. I actually have a conference call with Securus twice a week, or excuse me, twice a month, and on those specific conference calls, Ascension is actually invited to come and participate and give us, feedback as far as anything that they might need assistance with from Securus. The participation was not there consistently. So just from that information that I'm giving you, I can't necessarily say that's the reason why Securus did not reach out to them, but I'm just giving you the background of what the expectation was from Ascension.
Mr. Beecham, can I ask you a question real quickly?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible when we execute the contract for this transaction, is it possible for us to make a stipulation in the contract for Securus or whoever is awarded this contract to make a very strong and good faith effort?
Certainly.
To identify a hub company and to partner with? Is that
Certainly.
possible at all?
I think we can encourage him, but you're saying yes and he's saying no.
I understand
I'm going to go with him.
that there is a,
They have made, I think, I was not part of the committee, a comprehensive offer that we're in the process of either rejecting or accepting. I don't think we can, after we do this point, start dictating new terms. I don't know whether this would be considered a new term, but it could be considered a new term.
there is a representative from Securus in the audience. If you'd like to, Mr. Dean Ramsey, if you'd like to speak with him.
Yes.
That was, I'm not sure that was a real thank you, but go ahead. Repeat your name.
Looking
and
forward to this.
Repeat your name so that they'll have it for the record.
Dean Ramsey, Securus Technology. Commissioner Brooks, we did reach out to Ascension Communications, and at one point, the delightful lady that runs Ascension, I consider a friend of mine, thought we had a deal that would work. But the fact of the matter, the way this bid was put out and designed, it required us to cut every bit of fat out of it in order to be competitive. You may notice in the evaluations that our cost per call was not the lowest. There was another company that beat the socks off us in the cost per call, but couldn't rate in the other. So we did our best to cut as much cost out, and we just couldn't go through with that. I would offer at this point, however, that we'll make that good faith effort to work with a company, and we'll even work with Ascension if you'd like for us to. I think Ascension has a lot to offer. They did not perform the last couple of years of the contract with us, and there's a variety of reasons we'll discuss with you elsewhere about that. One of the offers that we made to Ascension this time was that although we can't afford to put any extra money in this deal, we're aware that Ascension does quite a lot of other involvement or outreach services to the community through the auspices of HUD and some other federal agencies. So I negotiated with them and said, would it be of value to you if we allowed you to continue receiving the data from this contract, with the concurrence of the county, of course, so that you have those contacts to make in many times poverty-stricken areas of the community, where you can undertake your counseling through HUD and keep that revenue coming in through this stream of contacts that are made through the inmate telephone system. And she was very excited about that, but a little confused about the offer. There was some miscommunication there, and that didn't transpire. So we did do some good faith effort there. We just couldn't compete in this arena and include that money in that deal. I will offer to you that we will try our best to get them, or I have another company in mind that can do some installation work for us. But as far as splitting up the network, you just can't do that. You can't put part of the revenue over here and part of the revenue over there without having two different inmate telephone systems.
That makes sense. Right.
Well, sir, I too know the lovely lady who operates Ascension, and I consider her a friend of long standing as well. And in defense of Ascension, there have been many times over the past several years when they have come to me and complained that they could not get the data from Ascension that they needed to do their work. So this is not all an Ascension problem. They're the one getting beat up this morning, but there's enough to go around in that deal so that everybody shares some culpability for the success or failure of that particular situation. I am not particularly pushing Ascension over another company. My principle is that when we're spending public dollars, then the deal, if possible, ought to look like the face of this community. And for companies to come to this court offering services that do not meet that test, I am displeased.
What is the term of the contract? Is it 1 year, 2 years?
It's a 63-month contract with brand-new equipment. 63 months, we're allowing 3 months for installation of that equipment. There are 2 3-year renewal options.
How many?
2, 63 months, initial term of the contract, 2 3-year renewal options available.
So it could be 11 years, or it could be 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I move approval of the recommendation, purchasing agent.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a quick comment, is that for option 1 or option 2? We're recommending option 2.
Is that what you recommend?
Yes, sir, 1.1.
That's what the motion is.
Please vote. Motion passes 4-1.
Our second item is another RFP for...
Jack, can I go back to this real quickly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I understand, I voted yes for it because the court did receive a copy of the RFP, and we did approve the specification of the RFP. So in all fairness, I voted for this because to me, personally, I think it was the right thing to do. Now, if this contract is important enough business-wise to secure us communication, then I would strongly encourage that make a good faith effort to identify a hub company and move forward, because the renewal, personally for me, it would be important for me to vote yes on a renewal. So if you please make sure that we have available opportunities for other companies as well. Of course, we got to do it right. I don't want for any vendor to feel like they have to use a minority company or a hub company just because I understand in business we have competition and so forth. But if there's a good faith effort that can be made, that would be greatly appreciated for my part.
The one thing I would agree with, Commissioner, or not just the one thing, but certainly the thing that I think Commissioner Brooks is saying and I agree with, is that if it's important to us, it ought to be a part of the evaluation process in our RFPs. So there should be some weight given to that, and that should be something that we evaluate. Because then that's going to tell the vendors that if they don't have that in there, then they're going to be scored 0. And that will have I think, it will place an additional emphasis on this. So, I know we do that. We look at that when we do our major building programs and our other things. And so as we have these major contracts that come along, especially one where we're going to narrow it down to an RFP, we're going to actually sit down and talk and do that. I believe that needs to be a part of the way.
Is that legal?
Yes.
We'll see. Depends on exactly how you write it, how you do it. There's some ways to do it that work well, and there's some ways that get you into trouble. We have to check out what the most latest Supreme Court cases are on this to make sure, because there's quite a bit of litigation in this area that has occurred in the last
Well, we can do it.
10 years.
Let's see about it, or let's at least think about it, but follow through and maybe come back and update the court or the purchasing board.
Let me just point out that it's not by accident that all of the major firms who propose to be a part of our capital projects come to this court with a hub company as a part of their deal. It's not by accident that that happens. It's because the court has made it clear that to not do so,
You're not going to get the job.
you're not going to get to work.
Right.
And so it can be done. It has been done. And
But
I
we're
would
not
like
mandated.
to see it done as county policy across the board. Thank you, Mr. Beecham.
Item number 2.
RFP number 2011-095, the purchase of switched Ethernet area network services. Recommendations toward AT&T in the amount of $80,533.56. Also seeking contract approval from the court.
I will move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Johnson, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
I move approval of item 8L1, A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments? Then let's move on to approval of the claims, including the addendum.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Your Honor, we just have that one item that we'd like to bring to you after closed.
Then we'll recess our open session and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and Having returned from closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Thank you,
And
Your Honor.
before we move into that, we're going to close today in memory of L. Don Dotson, former mayor of the city of Bedford and longtime resident of Tarrant County.
Members of the court, if we could go to the briefing item, this will be item A, conducting local elections. I'm going to ask Ms. Diamond to come to the podium and begin discussions as it relates to this particular issue.
Members of the court, hello. We have had questions over the last week regarding the various options that are available to try to resolve the dilemma of the overlapping elections that result because of SB 100, which push the city elections and the primary runoffs closer together. We've identified a number of possibilities for the court's consideration. The best option, of course, is going to be if the two political parties and the cities are all able to be served by having the two political parties agree to have the primary runoff done as a joint election. The court may recall that Steve Maxwell, chairman of the Tarrant County Democratic Party, proposed this as a resolution at the last meeting. And while there were some initial opposition, I think people have looked at his suggestion and believe that that may be the wisest choice of all, and that would resolve the issue if the parties would both be on board with that. Other options that exist are very expensive options. For example, the cities and school districts that have their elections in May of the even-numbered years might choose to basically move their election dates from the May to either November, or change their years in which they are elected just to the years in which there are no primaries. The law provides options for them to do this. These are not options without cost to the cities. They would require some action by the city councils, by the school boards, various kinds of elections, and certain kinds of expenditures. Another option is that the cities and school districts could just take on the expense and the burden of running their very own elections and continuing to do them in the May time period. This creates, of course, an expense for the cities and school districts to purchase their election machines, their voting machines and supplies, and it creates a situation where people who are not knowledgeable about running elections are suddenly called to do so. Another option is that the cities and school districts could purchase voting machines and storage, places to put them, because we not only are running out of machines, we're running out of storage. And then the election administrator could nevertheless run the elections for those cities and school districts. If the cities and school districts chose to buy the same kinds of voting machines we're using, that would be a doable option. And it's an expensive option, but it is a doable option.
It cost us approximately $5 million when you add in the warehouse space along with the machines.
I would expect it to be $5 million split among all the various cities and school districts and or the county to come up with the number of machines and a storage place. Yes, $5 million is what we're talking about if we cannot all reach some kind of agreement. True. The costs could be divided a bunch of different ways. The cities might buy, the cities and school districts might buy the machinery. Perhaps the county might buy some. The cities and school districts might buy the others. But we're not just talking about the machines, which takes about $12,000 per polling place to outfit, but a place to store those machines, because we are again, as I said, we are sort of out of storage. Another possibility that we have talked about and that this court needs to consider is the legal possibility of limiting the number of voting machines made available for the primary runoffs. And there are a number of considerations that have to be looked at in figuring out the exact number of machines that should be provided to each party. For example, the question as to whether the parties would be provided the same number or merely provided with the number required by law. Those are not the same numbers. But if the 450 machines that the county has available, about 200 would be needed for a municipal election. So if the county were to limit the number of machines made available for the primary runoffs, it's very possible that all of this could be done with or without an agreement on a joint primary runoff and still accommodate all the cities and such. Again, always better when everybody agrees and finds a solution, and I do think Mr. Maxwell had the answer, and I hope that that will be given very serious consideration, because it would, I think, resolve the issue nicely. But it is certainly not the only option, and I think I've outlined about 7 possibilities here for your consideration. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
At last week's meeting, I think what we talked about again was a joint runoff. Both Mr. Maxwell and Ms. Click were there. They indicated that their executive committees, I understand that it's the party chairs who make the decision. They can talk with their executive committees and then based upon their recommendations, they can either go forward with their recommendation, but it's actually the party chair's decision. Both of them indicated that their next meeting of their executive committee would not be until mid-September. My concern is that if we choose this seventh option, the limiting option, then we're going to be required to, I believe, submit some documentation to the Justice Department for clearance. And so we may need to go ahead and move that forward right now and just say we are waiting. We're not sure yet how the parties are, whether they're going to, one, agree to a joint runoff, and then if not, then, can we limit in a way that they'll be okay with the limitations or whatever. But we've got to move pretty quickly in order to meet timeline requirements for the cities or for the purchase of machines or whatever. So I think we need to take action fairly soon on this.
Well, spending $5 million on something that we can come to a compromise, I think is not an option for me. I think I understand that both political parties do have some concern about a joint primary, but after all, we are here to serve the people and the taxpayers, so we got to somehow come to a compromise. Now, is there any way that we can set up the joint primary runoffs in ways that can address the concerns of both sides?
Good question. One of the ways that can be done, which is the middle ground, there's a way to do a joint primary where everyone is sitting at the same table, like in November, but where they're all at the same table. But
You're talking about a joint runoff.
Joint runoff. Thank you for
The
helping
joint
me
runoff,
along.
right.
Joint runoff. We're talking just the runoff, because Mr. Maxwell made clear the joint primary is not going to work, but the joint runoff is what we're talking about. It is possible to have each party have their own workstation, have tables far apart if need be, in the same location, and able to use the same machine. So the ballot, the machine that reads the ballot will know whether it's a Republican or a Democratic ballot, and the ADA accessible machine for people with disabilities could be shared, but the actual workers would not have to sit at the same table if there was an animosity that prevented that. It also has the upside of, if there's a trust factor lacking there, being able to watch one another perhaps might be...
Check and balance.
Yes, sir. That's also something to keep in mind for the parties.
Is it possible that we can somehow neutralize some of the potential threats from either side in terms of political pressure, intimidation? I'm not sure if that is even happening, but if it does happen, can we help neutralize it?
I think hopefully that would be a discussion with the, once we kind of decide which way we're going to go, hopefully the party chairs can come together and we can work through concerns that either side would have on that. Again, I think we're looking at purely election day runoff for a runoff election in the primary. Early voting wouldn't be an issue. It would be on actual runoff election day, and we would have, I think part of that would be to look at the total votes cast and where those votes were, and to work with the parties to make sure, that hopefully everybody was satisfied with what the. Right. But it is going to require. It's going to require cooperation and on both sides if we're going to save this $5 million.
May I speak?
Sure.
I, too, favor the compromise solution of the joint runoff election. I believe this to be feasible because I don't anticipate a large number of county-wide runoff races, at least on the Democratic side of the ballot. But I cannot speak for the Democratic Executive Committee. I don't serve on that body. I don't have a vote in that body. And they don't have to listen to me. but I will recommend strongly that they accept this option. However, if they fail to do that, I am cognizant of the fact that the political parties do have first claim on these resources. And I don't personally just automatically go to the place of we need to cram the parties down to accommodate the cities and the school districts. To me, the most sustainable option over time is for the cities and school districts to move their elections, preferably to the odd-numbered years, so that there is no conflict with anybody else. They're the only ones standing in those odd-numbered years. I would certainly be open to all sorts of options, but a forced cram down is something that I'd have to see the details of, and am not necessarily in favor of.
Yes, sir.
I see some real problems with forcing our governmental entities to change their elections. Pretty much every school district in the state has a 3-year term. They have 9 members, or at least the ones that I'm familiar with have 9-member school boards, and they have 3-year terms. There are a number of cities that continue to have 3-year terms, and they have them for a reason. They don't want to go to 4 years. A lot of them were at 2 years and found that the 3-year works so much better on transition when you're only turning over new councils, new school boards. You won't do it in 1 year. It takes a 3-year process. So I don't see that there's going to be a lot of cities that are going to opt out to do that, to go ahead and make that change. I think that most of our cities have been working under charters, if they're home rule cities, and there's a lot of intricacies that are involved in their charters and why they do things they do, and those have been voted on by the citizens of those communities for a reason. And I understand this didn't come from the county, it didn't come from the state, it came from the federal government that's causing this, and I know that as we've talked, there are other remedies other than doing a joint primary runoff election. But I think one option that I don't think is viable at all is Tarrant County, or collectively our cities, school districts, spending $3 million on equipment and up to $2 million to figure out where we're going to store all that equipment. I don't think that's an option.
I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah. So that's not a good use of taxpayer dollars, and I would put in a motion, if we're to that point, that we go with item 7, which is to use the number of machines that we have available for that primary runoff after we've got the municipal elections on the second Saturday of May. I believe that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Second Saturday of May.
It's May 14th.
The primary runoff has now been moved to the 4th Tuesday of May. Is that correct? So next year, this coming May, we got a 10-day period. And basically, the municipal elections end on Saturday. Early voting starts Monday morning for the primary. So you obviously can't use the same machines. So we would have approximately 250 machines available, I believe is the number that we've heard. I would suggest that we're giving them all the machines we have that are available, and that would be my suggestion and motion.
Number 7 says may require purchasing more machines and storage.
That would be depending on the numbers and how you split that. They're certainly to meet the statutory minimum on the one hand and to meet the number requested by the other party on the other hand, you wouldn't need to do that for the bare minimum. But if you wanted to provide more than the statutory minimum, you might have to do that because you're at 450 machines.
Well, I believe the Commissioner...
I would remove that.
I believe Commissioner Fickus's motion is to approve number 7 without the purchase of any additional
That would be
warehouse
correct.
space.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to clarify.
Thank you.
So for
We
the
have a
record,
motion.
it's to limit to 250
It's
the
to
number of
give
machines.
them all that we have available, which is approximately 250. I am not using that other word.
All right.
This starts with an L.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would need to see the details of how that's going to play out before I feel comfortable in voting for it.
Okay. There's no other discussion. Please vote. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further business?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
We are adjourned.
I thought Steve was going to be here. Maxwell.
I think it's coming.